10 years ago today, Stranger Things would release on Netflix for the very first time. Hundreds of thousands of families would gather around on their couch and watch what soon be known as a cultural phenomenon. The sci-fi adventures and the wild stories of the Upside Down, toppled with the 80s nostalgia, would capture the hearts of millions of people, and I myself was no exception. At 6 years old, I was watching season 1. A few years later, I was also watching season 2 and season 3, and in season 4, I was the type of fan that you would be making fun of. I would be screaming the lyrics to "Chrissy, wake up!" and I would be scrolling on TikTok, listening to these wild fan theories and people predicting who would die, who would survive. It didn't matter if those theories were right or wrong. What mattered is that me and the other diehard Stranger Things fans were having a blast. I mean, back when the last episode came out, I was on vacation at the time with my family. And instead of patiently waiting, I decided to hop on Netflix on my little iPad, and at 3 a.m, I watched the finale and cried to Eddie's death. And when we returned back home, where I was actually supposed to be watching it with my family, I just pretended like I'd never seen it before. So, with all of that being said, I'm sure you're not surprised that I was ecstatic to finally watch the long-anticipated epic conclusion of one of my favorite TV shows of all time, Stranger Things. And if you have actually watched the show, I'm sure you're not surprised to hear me say that it was mid. It was fucking mid. Donkey Kong mid. And terrible at worst. Why? Chapter 1, Episode 1, The Crawl, takes place 19 months after the last events of Season 4 happened. Robin and Steve are working at a radio station where they relay secret information to the party. Tonight, they plan to do a crawl, which, in case you don't know, is an operation where they sneak Hopper into the Upside Down to try and locate Vecna, who has been MIA all these months. However, the crawl couldn't go more wrong. Dustin isn't seen because he was actually beaten to a bloody pulp. However, this crawl cannot go more wrong. Dustin isn't anywhere to be found because he's over by Eddie's tombstone, beaten to a bloody pulp, and Will is getting a vision again. A vision from the perspective of a Demogorgon who is making his way towards the Wheeler's house. Now, this episode 1 is really just exposition. It's setting up for the actual final season, and I really don't have that many problems with it. I actually think it's a good introduction to all of the characters and what's happening in their lives. However, the bully plotline with Dustin, it's balls. It's genuinely balls. This entire cliche will be one of the first cracks that you see in the Duffer Brothers' dialogue and writing throughout this season. Even when Mike goes to defend Will with the other gang, his dialogue is just dumb. Unique brand of idiocy? Nobody says that. And when Dustin, after indirectly killing that snake, which was a terrible idea to write "Hellfire Lives" on the guy's locker, you knew what you were getting yourself into. But I digress. When he's at the tombstone cleaning the snake's blood off of Eddie's grave, each bully comes in one by one saying stupid one-liners like, "Hey freak," or "Hiya." They literally say "Hiya." Who says "Hiya"? I get that this takes place in the 80s, and I understand wanting to pay tribute to the cheesy 80s movies. I mean, it will do that in the future, and it's done that in the past. That's just kind of Stranger Things work, but that doesn't excuse bad writing. Hiya? No. And that's not even to mention Murray and how annoying he is this season. I mean, this guy is just a walking advertisement for whatever company wants to decide and sponsor the last season. We've already had this issue before, like for example in season 3 with the whole new Coke debacle, but it has never been more apparent and less funny. At least with New Coke, it pertained to the 80s and it was a nostalgia bait for the older generations watching the show. This is just insulting my intelligence because it is so obviously garbage, and it's not even funny, and I don't even remember what he was advertising. I remember Gatorade and I remember beef jerky, but that was Hopper and 11. This was just boring, unfunny, unoriginal. I hate Murray Bauman, and I hate the actor, by the way. Terrible, terrible person, but I digress. Episode 2, The Vanishing of Holly Wheeler. Basically, the Demogorgon attacks Karen, and Ted walk him down Wheeler, and it takes Holly into the Upside Down, or Vecna's, Henry Creel's mind, and 11 follows her in, and she reunites with Hopper. Will discovers that his visions are actually Henry's POVs, and with that, he's able to track down Henry's next target, Derek Turnbow. This episode was fine. It was fine. However, what I really don't understand is why the Duffer Brothers didn't decide to kill off Karen or Ted, or maybe even both. Both of those characters are very minor, and it's good, especially in the last season, to set the stakes, to make sure that everybody knows no character is safe. And while that might not be true, and while all the characters might actually live on and have a happily ever after, it's good to at least make them think that somebody might die, no? I mean, this is the final season. What do you have to lose? It's been a glaring criticism throughout the entire series that they only kill off the new characters and they play it safe, and there's so many fake outs. So why not actually go into it? I mean, Ted has no relevance after this episode. He's not mentioned once. Nancy or Mike don't care about him, and he's just in a coma. Karen is a little bit more of an important character, but again, she doesn't have any relevance. Why not kill her off? Why not kill Ted off? These are dead meat characters, and they add nothing. Their death would be significant to characters we actually care about, and it will remind the audience that despite contrary belief, these characters aren't unstoppable, they aren't untouchable, they aren't invincible. They are, but don't make us think that. At least not yet, damn. Episode, Lucas also shares his little theory where Holly vanishes very, very close to November 6th, aka the day Will went missing. And that's also the day that Hawkins, the Upside Down Hawkins, is stuck in. And Lucas says, and I quote, "I don't believe in coincidences anymore." Now, while this is fine on its own, given the context, which I will get to in a little bit, this dialogue is just bad because it sets up something that's interesting, but it never pays it off. So while it's fine, it's also not, because spoiler alert, there are many coincidences. Episode 3, The Turnbow Trap. Hopper and 11 are ambushed by soldiers, and they take one in to gain information on this newly discovered wall. On the other hand, everyone else plans to save Derek and put a tracker on the Demogorgon to locate Holly's whereabouts, and many felonies ensue during this process. On the other hand, Holly ventures out into the forest, and she discovers Max, who is, surprise, surprise, alive and well. Actually, a surprise to nobody. We knew this would happen. Now, I actually really liked this episode. I really liked what was happening with the Demogorgon in the barn scene and at the Turnbow house. It was actually some of the best fight sequences in the entire season. However, what I do not like is the terrible exposition and writing. Is having a meeting, devising a way to stop Vecna and to save Derek. Will literally says, and I quote, "Whatever Vecna is planning, we need to stop him and save Derek." Thank you, Will. It could not have been more obvious. We know. You don't need to spoon feed the audience information. That is lazy writing. And literally, one of the first things you know as a writer is the show don't tell rule. However, in this season, there is a lot of showing and a lot less telling, which is very bad, in case you couldn't tell. Especially when the show is 90% talking and discovering theories and planning and 10% actually doing the plan. It's just not good. On a happier note, Derek Turnbow is pleasantly likable. I along with many other people, had low expectations for this character. I was alongside with most of you in making fun of him. Who is this guy? Who is this kid? I thought he would be annoying, insufferable, and he would take away screen time from the actual characters that we care about. And all of those things are true. However, he's entertaining, which is all I can really ask for from a show. I think he's funny. I like his jokes. He has very good one-liners, and he is a real one. I mean, he ate the most pie, and he was out for like 2 hours on elephant tranquilizers, and then he pops out, he sees the monsters, he locks in, and he helps those guys. That is all you could ask from a 12-year-old boy. Really. Well, actually, it's more, because really, an average 12-year-old boy would still be knocked out like the grown man who we never see again, but I can only assume was out during that entire time. But I digress. Anyways. Episode 4, The Sorcerer. The best episode in the season. Basically, the gang tries to free all of the kids out from the government base. Eleven and Hopper sneak into the government base in the Upside Down, and they find Collie, aka 8, aka that one girl who you probably forgot about if you were just a casual watcher that was in that one really, really bad episode 8 years ago back in season 2. Anyways, Vecna KOs all of the guards at the military base. He gives a very villain speech to Will, and Will finally accepts the fact that he's gay and gains magical powers. Jokes aside, I don't know if you know, but that was me trying to be funny. I actually really liked the Will gaining powers scenes. I thought him and Robin's dynamic is very interesting. I think it's fun, and I actually think it's really sweet. And Will exploring his sexuality and finally coming to terms with that and finding his person in Mike, which allows him to connect into the hive mind and save the people he cares so deeply about, is really beautiful. And I think it's a character arc that he deserves as one of the 4 original boys. However, what I will not stand for is the ridiculous plot armor these main characters have. These military men who we are not supposed to care about have machine guns, machetes, flamethrowers, all of it to try and take out the Demogorgons and Vecna, and they are KO'd. All of them are either crippled for life or dead. However, all the characters that we do care about, for example, the kids, Mike, Joyce, all of those people, they never get attacked or anything. The worst that happens is to Joyce, where Vecna throws her a few feet after mercilessly killing hundreds of men. Which doesn't really make any sense. Not to mention the fact, just 2 episodes ago, Karen was able to injure a Demogorgon by throwing a wine glass at it, where it literally slowed them down and was having a trail of blood Elle and Hopper could follow in episode 2. But a machete and a flamethrower can't take them out? Yeah, hard to believe. That's just bad writing. It's bad writing. I do not stand for plot armor. I do not stand for it! Another discrepancy I have with this episode is Max, where we get to hear her tragic backstory of how she ended up here, and how she was so close to escaping, and she could feel Lucas's hand, and she could see her way out, but Vecna, he found her at the last minute, and he brought her back, and she had to stay in the cave. That's your fault. That's your fault, Max, because if you had some sense of urgency and weren't so unbelievably slow, you would have been freed. So I don't really feel sorry for you, because this is actually going to be a pattern in later episodes. Max is slow. She is slow. But I digress. I still love Max, but that PMO. Episode 5, Shock, the first episode of Volume 2. Holly goes to find Max so they can go through Vecna's memories of Holly and find a way out. Vecna finds Max and Holly and begins to hurt Max by strangling her. resurrects a dead Demogorgon, and Will taps into the hive mind. Revealing to the others Max is alive, Collie and Eleven reunite, and Dustin finds Bender's journal and realizes that the thing that he was trying to shut down the wall was actually a ball of exotic matter, and before he could tell Nancy, don't shoot at it, Nancy shoots at it, and it blows up. End of episode. Wow, this episode is okay. It's okay. One issue that I have is I think it's pretty soon for Will to be able to take over Vecna's mind, twist his ankle, especially because literally just an episode earlier, he just discovered he had powers. Another crazy thing is that this is Joyce's idea. In the past 4 episodes, she was set up to become this overprotective mom who won't let anybody hurt Will, and she needs to stay close to him, which doesn't really make sense because literally last season she abandoned her kids to go to Russia to save Hopper, but I digress. But it still doesn't really make that much sense, and she does admit she does regret it, but she still does it. So there's that. Collie. I really wish they just left her in season 2. That episode was obviously a backdoor pilot and was going to be a spin-off. However, it got bombed and everybody hated it, so they didn't make it. And I really, really do think they should have just forgotten about her. She's just another character that we have to worry about. And she's stale and honestly pointless. She does bring some conflict and she does challenge Eleven's mindset. However, I don't care about her. And honestly, I think she's kind of annoying. However, one thing that I did really like from this episode is Dustin and Steve's dynamic. I thought their fight was very, very well. I will say, I don't know what Dustin was on about Eddie being so smart. The man was a super senior. He was a super senior. He was not smart. And also Steve was 100% right. Should he have said that? No, I don't think he should have, but it's the truth. And he genuinely did die for no reason. And honestly, I'm kind of sad the writers killed him, but I do understand, and it did give Dustin's character a lot to work with. Also, shout out to Gaten. He definitely has probably top 5, maybe even top 3 best performances in Stranger Things Season 5 as a whole. He's always been a very, very strong actor. Episode 6, Escape from Camazotz. The exotic matter detonates and the Upside Down begins to melt. Nancy and Jonathan become trapped and, surprise, surprise, they break up. Vecna finds Max's location for Will and he sends demo dogs to the library where Robin, Vicky, and Lucas have to protect her. And Max traverse through Vecna's memories and they find an escape. Hence the name, Escape from Camazotz. And that's the end. Now, I actually thought this episode was pretty good. One thing I would like to note is Robin's character. In this episode, she has a whole epiphany with Max's, Will's, Elle's, Holly's connection to Vecna's mind, and she uses vinyl records for her little analysis. And this is more of a whole character Stranger Things issue because everybody has these epic conclusions from some random object or something somebody says. If I was in Stranger Things, I could shout Dingle Hopper, and Erica would have this life-changing revelation that would change everybody's perspective on the Upside Down for some odd reason, and this happens at least twice in the episode. It's actually kind of absurd. However, I wanted to note Robin because her character is very different from her season 3 character. Now, I think Maya Hawke is a great actor, and I think the writing has very suffered, so she doesn't have a lot to work with. However, the way Maya Hawke acts out some of her lines makes it come off as awkward and cringy and weird. However, if the line was acted out like season 3 Robin, it would have been seen as witty and funny and sarcastic. So it's very interesting change in Robin's character, and I wanted to point that out because if you're watching a season as a whole in the span of a few months rather than a few years with these big giant gaps, her character shift from season 3 to season 5 is prominent and gives you kind of whiplash when you look at it. Besides Robin's weird character thingies, the Nancy and Jonathan breakup scene I actually really liked. I really liked it. I thought it was really clever. I really liked the imagery with the ring, and I know a lot of people were iffy on it, and a lot of other people didn't really understand that it was a breakup scene. For me, it felt obvious, and I didn't like that they outright said this is a breakup, but instead they just kind of let it speak for itself, or not speak for itself, considering the fact half of the people didn't get that, but I don't know. I just thought it was really great. And Charlie Heaton and Natalia Dyer's acting wasn't really notable in this season, but the scene was actually very good for them. And I loved the characters' vulnerability when they thought that they were going to die. But obviously they weren't, because plot armor. Speaking of plot armor, Lucas is able to kick a demodog while holding a 120-something pound woman. The whole hospital scene, I couldn't help but think, Vicky should die, Vicky should die, Vicky should die. And I knew deep down, Vicky won't die, Vicky won't die, Vicky won't die. Instead, during our little Jurassic Park moment, which, by the way, is absolutely absurd how Lucas was carrying around a boombox, and yet the demodogs could not be able to hear the loud running up that hill song. However, they were able to hear a washer start to move, which, by the way, I don't know how on Knocking on Death's Door, Karen was able to do that. However, I digress. They heard that. Not the giant boombox though, and while the Jurassic Park scene was cool, really what I think should have happened is Vicky freak out, run off. She actually does the explosion because there's no way Karen could have done that. It explodes, Vicky actually dies in the process, Robin grieves because she's a character that needs more to work with, and also Vicky has zero relevance after this. They go off, they see Karen, she's worried about her daughter, Mike comes in, he tries to tell her that oh no, we're gonna save her. I can't remember if this is this episode or next episode, but anyways, I'm going to continue. And then Karen goes off. Or Karen actually dies in episode 2, and none of this happens because she's irrelevant and I need characters to die. Yeah, again, this is part 2 of Max takes way too long, because why was she giving a 20-minute speech to Holly when the exits are right there? It could have been shortened down by 10 whole minutes. It was so boring, and I just wanted to yell at my TV. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. We get it, we get it, we get it. Hurry up. Please. 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 Episode 7, The Bridge. Max finally wakes up and she has a heartfelt reunion with the rest of the party. However, Holly is not done yet escaping. She is now in the abyss and she tries to run away from Vecna. However, it is too late. And while looking down at her sister, she is flown back up and taken back to Vecna's lair. Meanwhile, the group devises a plan to stop Vecna, and Will comes out to the rest of the group. Holly convinces Elle to herself after the plan is done, and Vecna gathers all the kids to do a creepy seance and enact his plan of merging the abyss and Earth into one. Dun dun dun. This is probably the worst episode of season 5. I did not like this episode. Starting off, the wormhole. I don't really like the whole wormhole thing. One, that's not how wormholes work. Wormholes are a bridge from one point of space to another point of space, not from one dimension to a whole different dimension. That's not how they work. Second of all, there is so much exposition, and I understand this is the last episode to the finale, but it was all really, really boring. And again, with these characters having these epic epiphanies from the most random freaking things. Again, I could say pancakes, and then they would have this epic epiphany. Oh my gosh, Vecna is actually Miley Cyrus. I'm so not funny. I am so not funny. Wow. But yeah. This is a little thing, but Murray, Erica, and Mr. Clark. Murray says the same exact joke, calling Mr. Clark schnookums. And he does that every scene he's in. And that's not how the rule of thirds work. It was kind of funny the first time, but like, I want more jokes. If he wants to do this thing where like Mr. Clark's like his like little wife and he's making fun of him, have him go progressively more into it. Call him Schnookums the first scene because that's what the librarian called him. Then at the last scene, talk about how he wants to get in bed with him or something. I don't know. It just wasn't funny. I don't like Murray. I don't like Murray. Like actor aside, I just don't like his character. He's not funny. He's not funny. The big thing. Will's coming out scene. Now, I want to preface, I think Will should have had a coming out scene. And I don't like the scene because Will's gay or that he's coming out, which I see a lot of people talking about. They're saying that Will's sexuality and his exploration of his sexuality is being shoved down our throats, and Netflix has gone so woke, and it's annoying, and that it doesn't matter to the story, but it definitely does. Will's sexuality is a big part of his character, and this has been a thing since season 1. Grace was talking about how he was being made fun of to Hopper when she's complaining about him being missing, and Hopper asks, well, is he? And she's like, it doesn't matter. What matters is that my son is missing. Or where Mike insults Will, and he says, it's not my fault you don't like girls. Or when Will is being bullied and all the kids are making fun of him, saying that he's in fairyland when everybody is presumed that Will's dead. And not to mention a painting in season 4 that never gets addressed, by the way. It doesn't. However, this is just a bad coming out scene. And it makes me upset because Robin's coming out scene was really beautiful and very well written. I want to start off by saying is that it feels like it comes out of nowhere. Will says that Vecna showed him things about his family rejecting him and his friends not accepting him as a queer person. However, we never see that. I want to be able to see these things, and it doesn't need to be a full entire scene, but it could even just be like little like flashbacks in his mind while he's being captured by Vecna, where you see Joyce or something like looking at him in disgust, or Mike like pulling away from him, calling him a freak or something, and it's just like these flashes and these moments that we see into Will's mind, but we get none of that. We get none of that, so it actually does feel like it's coming out of nowhere. It also feels so disingenuous when you have random people like Collie, who Will doesn't even know, by the way, or Vicky, watching him come out. That should have been a thing between his friends, Joyce and Jonathan, because those are the only people that need to know that. And him going on and on about the things that they all have in common, it just felt dumb. It didn't feel real, and it makes me mad that it doesn't feel real because in previous seasons, moments like these actually did feel real. And I'm disappointed because I knew this was going to be a thing coming into season 5, and I knew that this was going to be addressed because it's such an important part to Will's character. But I'm sad it was addressed in such a poorly written way. As a viewer of the show, a person not in the LGBT community, I just want good writing. I want good scenes. I want them to have a purpose and a point. And really, with this kind of writing, it just felt pointless. And I wish they did more with it. Episode 8, The Right Side Up. The epic finale of Stranger Things Season 5, which up until this point has been pretty mediocre. So let's see if this finale can bring everything together. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. I really don't want to give a summary for this episode. All you have to know is they defeat Vecna, 11 dies, and there's like a 40-minute epilogue. Great. Major complaint for the finale is, why didn't they mention Patty Newby? If you haven't seen Stranger Things Foreshadow, which if you ever have the opportunity to, I highly recommend. I got the opportunity to see it in Broadway a few months ago, and I loved it. I thought it was great. The special effects were amazing. It was a wonderful experience. But it was also canon. And actually, when Max, Holly, and Eleven go and traverse into Vecna's mind, and they see Joyce and Hopper and Henry all in high school together, and they're performing a play called Oklahoma. It's actually not Oklahoma. That's the whole plot of the Foreshadow. And in the Foreshadow, one of the most important characters, and very, very important into Henry's character as a person, is Patty Newby. And I thought if they were going to go ahead and write this show and make it canon to the events of Stranger Things, they would do something with it, but they don't. And honestly, I think it's a missed opportunity. I mean, they don't even mention the fact that Joyce and Hopper knew Henry Creel when he was at Hawkins. They don't ask about that. They don't mention that. The only thing that we get from that is Eleven being surprised that she sees Joyce. I mean, why mention it and not do anything with it? That doesn't make any sense to me. Anyways, moving on. I wish Hopper killed 11. That's it. I think it would have been so beautiful and so disheartening and so sad and so emotional that it wasn't just a figment of Hopper's mind, and he actually did pew 11. However, I'm not too upset, because if he actually did kill 11, we wouldn't have gotten that beautiful monologue where he tries to convince his new daughter not to kill herself after Vecna reveals the truth. And while this doesn't actually work, it's a really beautiful piece. And actually, what I am really sad about is that they didn't do anything with the fact that just a few episodes ago, Hopper was planning on sacrificing himself, and yet he's trying to stop his daughter from doing the same. And 11 doesn't bring up that hypocrisy or anything. I mean, it's set up, but they don't do anything with it. The next big thing that I wanted to talk about is Collie stuff. It was unnecessary, really. Again, I don't think they should have had Collie in it. And I give Duffer Brothers applause for subverting expectations. I did not predict Collie would die, mainly because they were experimenting on her, even though she was a failed target. Actually, I thought it would have made more sense if they aimed the gun at Hopper and they threatened to kill him, but we couldn't have Hopper die, so it had to be Collie, because she's basically a new character at this point. We don't care about her. She could die. That's fine. She can die. But what I will not accept is Murray Bauman not dying, because I was 100% convinced that he was gonna go guns a-blazing, taking out all of the army men in slow motion, and then get pow, pow, pow. But right before he died, he would have said, "This one's for Alexei." Even though Alexei died from the Russian government, not the American government. However, I really liked Alexei. He was one of my favorite characters and top 3 saddest deaths from Stranger Things. And I think he needs to be acknowledged a lot more. So I would really appreciate him being acknowledged.
Hi, editing me here. I just wanted to say that I realized now that I cried to Alexei's death and I cried to Eddie's death on multiple rewatches. However, I did not cry once during the finale, because it is just so emotionless, and I knew all the characters were going to survive, and yeah, I don't know.
Anyways, besides that stuff, I want to get on to the main crop, aka the main battle. Vecna in the Mind Flayer versus everybody else, and it was so disappointing. Genuinely so disappointing, because they were defeated in like 10 minutes, and it was so easy. And it doesn't make any sense. This is supposed to be the home place of these creatures, and they don't see them. They don't put up a fight or anything. Did they just disappear? Where did they go? Why are they not there? That seriously makes no freaking sense. Also, how come when all of this was happening, Will didn't feel anything? He felt the gunshot when they were in Henry Creel's memories. He felt that, but he didn't feel the Mind Flayer getting torched. He didn't feel Vecna's head getting chopped off. Like, genuinely, I thought that Will was going to die when the hive mind died, because he was so connected However, literally nothing happened. He didn't even feel pain. Nothing happened.
Hello everybody, editing me here again, and I just wanted to say that I understand and know that the Duffer Brothers have explained all of these things that I have just complained about. However, this isn't a J.K. Rowling, this isn't Harry Potter. They should be able to tell us this inside of the show, and also the reasons that they give are so incredibly stupid. Like, what do you mean Vecna can go into people's minds, and he literally used Will as a spy, but he didn't know their plan and he was just surprised by it? Yeah, that's stupid. I'm not falling for it. I mean, he literally went into Hopper's mind before all of this happened, and he didn't see what they were planning. I don't know.
Another thing that's crazy is, how did Derek fit through the rocks? Like, that was the thing with Max. Like, she got stuck and Holly had to, like, help pull her out. And they were doing everything where they were emphasizing the fact that Derek can't run because he's slower than everybody else. So I thought it was actually going to be a problem that Derek couldn't fit. They didn't do anything with that. And I understand, like, Henry was, like, stopped because he was witnessing the most traumatic thing that's ever happened to him. But why did they include the other stuff with him not running? Was that supposed to be, like, funny? Because that wasn't funny. I just feel bad for Derek because Derek's like me whenever I was in gym class. Put some respect on Derek's name. Delightful Derek does not deserve that. That's just like humiliation. Why would you do that to Derek? Derek's my D1. Do not mess with Derek like that. Anyways, it's not that important. What was more important was the actual, like, ending of fight scene where they were destroying the Kaiju Mind Flayer and Vecna, but it didn't seem that important. It really didn't seem that important because literally it was harder to kill Billy than it was to kill Vecna. And that is sad. But of course he needed room for the 40-minute epilogue. We'll get there. First, I want to talk about Eleven's death. It was fine, I guess. I mean, I'm glad at least, like, one important character died, but I'm not glad at how they did it. I will admit the scene with Mike and Elle was pretty cute until you realized the fact that Mike didn't say I love you back to 11. He did not say I love you back, which is absolutely insane coming from the two characters who were having that same problem in season 4, and while Elle is planning on herself, and this is the last time Mike will see her, literally ever, alive or dead, he's just gonna not say I love you? Are you serious? He says I love you to his mom 10 minutes later. He can't say I love you to 11. Literally, we were getting these flashbacks from moments of the relationship, and we get a flashback from season 4 where Mike actually says I love you back to 11, which was this really powerful and emotional moment, and then we don't get that when 11 is dead. Or going to be dead. She's not dead yet. She might not even be dead, actually, now that I think about it, but who knows?
Hey, editing me here again. I'm pretty sure the Duffer Brothers said that all of that was inside of Mike's head, and if that's true, he couldn't even say I love you to Elle inside his own imagination. That's crazy. That is absolutely insane. It makes it 10 times worse. Also, that whole explanation is also, like, terrible. I do not like that. I wish it was real, but I guess it wouldn't make sense because she couldn't use her powers, but I don't know. He couldn't say I love you in his head. That's terrible. Ghastly. Absolutely foul. But, yeah.
One other thing that I don't like is after 11's death, they do an immediate transition into a year and a half later when the kids are graduating. However, there's a lot of moments that I would have liked to see after that. For example, what's going to happen to them? Like, all of those people committed multiple felonies. They committed kidnapping, they committed arson. I mean, Murray just bombed a helicopter. Hopper killed a bunch of people. They witnessed this secret top government thing and they just let them go? They let them go? I don't think so. Not my government. They wouldn't do that. Seriously? I don't believe that. And also, we don't get to see the Karen and Holly reunite. I mean, for all Holly could know, her mommy's dead. She saw her, like, laying down in a puddle of her blood. Her blood was actually smeared all over Holly's face. And if they wanted to keep Karen alive for whatever reason, they could have at least have her reunite with her daughter. Or I could have seen Hopper actually grieving Eleven's death, because yeah, he moves on and he already learns that he can't let himself fall into that self-hatred for Sarah, but I would have liked to see him like have an emotional moment where he's like in like Elle's bedroom and in the cabin and just like looking at her old teddy bear or something. I don't know. I just wanted something. That would have been really nice. But anyways, the time jump. I didn't have too many problems with it. I thought it was fine. What I do have a problem with is, where's Vicky? I mean, they kept her alive. We don't see her or anything. I mean, we don't even know if Robin broke up with her or not. I assume they did. I assume they broke up because, like, from my interpretation, I thought, like, Vicky might have, like, ratted them out to the government. And then, like, the government, they, on top of, like, finding, like, all their secret plans and Vicky's help, like, they found all of their whereabouts and everything, but I don't know. I don't know that for sure. Nobody knows for sure. For all we know, Vicky could have died in a car accident. Guess that's open-ended. And what else is open-ended is Eleven's death. Now, I understand why they kept it open-ended. For spin-offs, they might want to bring her back to make some more money. But it's kind of annoying, and it felt a little bit lazy. But besides that, I actually did really like the last final scene with the Dungeons and Dragons moment. I thought that was cute, and I liked seeing everybody else's like little moments, and in the future, Will finds himself, Max and Lucas finally have their movie date, Mike writes a book. Oh my gosh, another thing I literally forgot to talk about earlier. I should probably start scripting this. I have made so many mistakes. Mike never finds out Will has a crush on him. Like, the picture thing, never brought up. That's, like, never brought up. We have a scene between the two of them, and it's a short one where Mike's like, you're my best friend. But that's it. Will doesn't confess to him or any of that. Like, we already had a crappy coming out scene with Will. I would have at least liked a cute Byler scene, and I'm not a Byler shipper. Don't think Byler should have been a thing. If Byler was a thing in season 5, I thought that would have felt rushed and came out of nowhere, because we've never had any hints that Mike shows any attraction to guys, let alone Will. I thought that would have been bad, but I would have at least liked Will to confess, or Mike to acknowledge that at least at one point Will had feelings for him. I mean, he can't be that oblivious. I know that was a thing, but damn. Wow. Anyways. That's Stranger Things for ya. I thought it was pretty good. I think there is a lot of plot holes, and usually I have a hard time finding plot holes in movies and TV shows, but there were just so many I could think of off the bat while the show was happening, while the episode was playing, and it was underwhelming. It was undercooked. It was a letdown. I love Stranger Things, and I love the writing of Stranger Things. I remember how magical season 1 felt. It was probably my favorite season and probably the best written season. And then season 2 was pretty good, even though it had the worst episode in the series, but it was pretty good. I really liked season 3. I mean, Erica, Steve, Robin, and Dustin, wow, that was a fun group. Probably my favorite group. And season 4, Russia was boring, California was boring, but I will say the Hawkins gang, that was one of the best plot lines. I loved it. And running up that hill, it had some of the most iconic moments ever. And Eddie was such a likable character, and we got to see so much development from Max. She really took center stage, and her and Lucas's relationship was really sweet. And I loved Chrissy as a character. She was only in for one episode, but she was amazing. And all of the seasons all have great standout moments, and I can't really see the same for season 5. I mean, I thought the Turnbow Trap was probably one of the most entertaining episodes, and the Sorcerer was definitely up there in the entire series, probably top 10 episodes in the entire series, but it's the final season. All of the episodes should feel like top episodes. This is the last we're going to see of characters that I and so many other people grew up with. Characters that we watched grow up in the last 10 years. We dedicated so much time to this series, and it feels like a slap in the face to watch this finale. and to watch these episodes and think what could have been, what could have happened. Because I saw fan theories, and I actually believed in fan theories that were a million times better than whatever we got, and that shouldn't be a thing. And I'm not saying I wanted somebody else to write Stranger Things 5. What I'm saying is that I wanted the Duffer Brothers to really look at Stranger Things and come up with a plot that could actually solve some plot holes and have some conclusions. I mean, in season 1, if you think about it, how did Eleven know who Will was? How did the Demogorgon let himself in? They don't have telepathy, yet they unlock themselves. They don't reveal that. Again, with the first shadow, where's Patty Newby? I'm not over that. I'm not over it. Overall, I think Stranger Things is a great show. But what a person remembers from a show is the finale. It's sad that they didn't nail it. And I was really hoping that they would. Nothing led me to believe that they wouldn't. So coming in with high hopes only made it worse. So I want to say, Stranger Things, thank you so much for the entertainment. And I still really enjoyed the season, but I wish you could have done more. Anyways, yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching this incredibly long video. I've been talking for like 2 hours straight to myself. I am losing my mind. There was like a 10-minute time, you won't see it, where I was just staring at my phone, not knowing what to do or what to say after messing up for the 10th, 100th time. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. And if you want more videos, leave a like and subscribe. Subscribe. Subscribe.